All right. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Hey Huzi. I'm Moda Bolsi, and this is episode number 3 of our AI deep dive. Today, we're tackling one of the most controversial and honestly, probably most personal applications of AI, which is creativity. How AI can be creative. Can AI actually be creative? And should it be? Here's the question that keeps creators up at night. What happens to human artists, writers, designers when AI can generate professional quality work in seconds? Eric Post is here yet again, founder and CEO of Huzi.ai, and today we're going into a territory that gets not only philosophical and emotional, but honestly, it's contentious because when we talk about AI and creativity, we're talking about what makes us human. And if you create anything, art, music, the written word, design, content, or if you just care about the future of human creativity, this is your episode. So let's get right into it. All right. Eric, welcome, man. Thanks for coming
Good
back
morning.
on. Excited to
Good morning.
really dive deep into this conversation.
This kind of hits near and dear to me, like
Cool.
when we're talking about intellectual property and creativity and artistry and what's human and what's not. So I'm excited to hear where the conversation goes today.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is how can something that is robotic in nature, algorithm in nature, formulaic in nature, be creative? Other than maybe taking initial creativity that is sparked by human and remixing it and making it something different. Do you believe that AI in its essence can be creative?
You know how there's a lot of talk about hallucinations, how people say, "Oh, my ChatGPT
Yeah.
hallucinated. It made up an answer. It cited a fake court case. It cited a fake school. It didn't get the math right. It just guessed, right?" That is essentially creativity that we don't like. So what we're what people like that's creative that they enjoy, they're like, oh my god, that was a beautiful poem, that was a great song, that was a good idea, that was such a creative idea. But if it's making things up in a creative way but you don't like it, like humans view it as lying, or it has bad intentions, or it's I can't trust it or whatnot. And so going back to it, we just anthropomorphize everything. And so I just want to say that part of the downside of creativity is not right answers. So, if somebody's looking to use an AI system and references, citing sources, specific use cases, those sorts of things, then you have to treat the AI accordingly. If you're looking for a thought partner, a collaboration, an iterative partner, a creative inspiration, spark creator for you, to rate, to either writing, images, music, videos, whatever you're working on, then you don't care about that sort of citing of sources and being locked down to the source of truth. You care about it for exploring new and novel ideas. And so I just want to say there isn't one AI, and you could say, well, AI is creative or AI isn't. It takes the user to decide what's their application of the AI and then being able to understand how to use it so it gets the outcome. If you want creative outcomes, then we can talk about how to do that. If you want logistical lockdown, cite your sources outcomes, we can also talk about that too. So I just want to start by defining like creativity and hallucinations and lying and beautiful surprises is all the same thing. We just view them differently as a user.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as a writer, I use the AI, whatever. I'm not going to be specific on the platform or the large language model, but to essentially expedite or expose things in my writing that perhaps I wasn't looking at. It allows me to essentially multiply my capacity. So from that standpoint, I find that it can be creative. But when I see AI generated art or AI generated writing that hasn't been perhaps refined or wasn't influenced by a creative person, a human, I always feel like there's something missing. There hasn't been it hasn't been fed enough information or the right information or what have you. I guess the question becomes more philosophical in nature. Like, how do you define creativity from that regard? Do you just completely leverage the platform and you just are completely reliant on it and its expertise because of what it's been programmed and designed to do? Or do you just use it to be able to enhance the thing that you're already doing, which is essentially what I do? But I'm not a designer from that regard. I'm primarily a writer. So someone that is an artist by hand, could they take something that they took from their brain and their capacity of understanding of what art is to them and depict it and then have AI essentially take that and, I don't know, enhance upon it or render it differently somehow? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. I like Rick Rubin as a thought leader at times and the way he views creativity. He has kind of this
Yeah, he's
monk
brilliant.
like Buddhist approach to intuition. And, he fully admits that he's one of the best music producers of all time that doesn't know how to work a soundboard, doesn't know how to sing, and doesn't know how to play any musical instruments, right? But he has a certain intuition. He's tuned in to music in such a way that he knows he has a taste for it. He does a good job of explaining that AI doesn't have taste and it doesn't have a
He's a
point of view.
conductor.
Yeah, he is. And
Yeah.
so what he's able to do is apply his human intuition and taste to something that generates art or something that's creative. AI is trained at a PhD level on almost everything. How to make art, how to make a drawing, how to make a social media post, how to write a novel, all those sorts of things. But it has no taste or point of view. The human needs to give that to it. And that's the important part that when we're going to talk about creative, because that's what the conversation is about, which is really exciting. AI is an amplifier of what the user is. So if they're a mediocre marketing person, they're going to help them produce a lot more mediocre marketing. If they're a mediocre writer, their AI will help it produce a lot more fairly mediocre writing. It can level them up. There's a ceiling to that. This is why when you read something that's written by AI, even though it has all of the training data of all the best authors ever on the face of the planet, we can talk about how that happened and whatnot if you want to. But even though it has all that stuff, that's why it sounds grammatically perfect, organized logically, but it feels hollow
Hmm.
or shallow or soulless, we might say, right? And so this is why when you're you're logging into LinkedIn, you're looking through all these posts, you can tell not just because of the M dashes or the antithesis, sentence structure where if it's not this, it's that sort of sentence structure that we all know that ChatGPT writes like, but you can literally feel it. Like our intuition, our antennas go up and we're like, I'm not sure if that was written by a person, right? It sounds fine. That is that lacking of point of view and the lacking of an opinion that you need to infuse when you're working with AI, especially for creative work. And I'm going to put
Hmm.
almost every type of work is creative work if you want to do it at a high level, right? Like almost every work really is. So creative work for just writing your corporate emails, that's a creative process should you want to. We were just talking about online Facebook Marketplace before we got on this, and I was just selling some stuff because we're moving here, and I didn't just put it online and put a post. I did creative writing to get more money and more buyers for stupid little things, desks and stuff like that I was selling because it's a flooded marketplace. So to me, posting something on Facebook Marketplace
Hmm.
was a creative process and it yielded better results.
All right. So then my next question would be, what if the good enough creatives were able to master AI and then became exceptional in the process?
Yeah. Okay, let's also be honest that sometimes good enough is good enough for some consumer somewhere, right? Some business, some consumer somewhere. I was
Right,
like, oh,
right,
that
right.
sounds great, right? Right. So I think we all have our relative and subjective views of excellence and good enough and so on and so forth. So I should say that my opinion of good enough might be different than somebody else's. But I think what I'm trying to get at here is the trend. And it's an upward trend. Because when the barrier got almost reduced to zero to produce content, right? And it went from thousands of dollars to hundreds of dollars to dozens of dollars to pennies now to produce something, right? Have something produced for you, and the AI does it on your behalf. Now that doesn't do anything except for raise the bar. It doesn't make my life easier as a marketer because now I have to be a better marketer to stand out because a lot more marketing is flooding the interwebs. Like we've talked about, like 8 to 10,000% times more content that you're competing with. So it's really it's really kind of a little bit of an arms race here, and I want to say that just at the end of the day, all my opinions are rooted in longevity. So I'm just saying, generally, the trend is if you can use it to make yourself better over time, you're more likely to ride ahead of the curve, whether it's the layoff curve we're starting to see now, or consumers like they're like, oh, I don't need to use this graphic designer that gets me a logo back in 3 weeks turn time. I can just get a logo prototype, out of Huzi or something like that in 10 seconds. Right. So lots of these things are eating the value proposition of these service industries, these expert service industries. And so my opinions aren't based on like today. It's like the longer term strategy is how do you not automate your AI and your creative work, but augment you first. So if I augment myself first,
Ooh.
so I'm continuing to grow, I'm going to probably be in a better place in 6 months from now, a year from now, 6 years from now than I would if I took in the lazy way out. That's what I'm trying to suggest today.
Hell yeah. All right. Okay. That makes sense. So then, from an authenticity standpoint, the question becomes, if I use AI, is this still technically my work? I believe it is because of the way that I use it. But perhaps a logo designer or a graphic designer or a visual artist of some kind or a video editor of some kind, maybe they
We,
feel inadequate.
you got to look at well, first of all, legally, you got to look at the terms of the service of the AI system that you're using. So, like Huzi's
Yeah.
AI terms of service is that our users own the outputs, right? They own the inputs and the
Ooh,
outputs.
that's a big differentiator. Yeah.
It is because it's not always true for commercial use, right? So you have to
Right.
really look to see what the terms of use are of the systems that you're using to see, making sure you've got the licensing and the rights to use the work that comes out of these systems. So I would start from the legal standpoint first, like read the frickin' fine print, and that's part of it. It's boring, but it's necessary. At the same time, too, trust, safety, and security is a big thing. Like I believe in protecting intellectual property. I believe in paying artists for their work. I believe in paying authors for their work, right? And so, like our platform, we're doing all that we can for data privacy, safety, and security. We have a trust center that people can log in 24/7 to see all of our controls. That's managed by a third party, so you don't have to take my word for it. These are important things, I think, that people in business with intellectual property or artists or creatives with their creative work or their knowledge, their experience they've gathered over 20 years, don't feed it into systems that are just going to like leverage it and make the value of that go to zero. Like make sure you're leveraging that and using your AI systems that support you in your mission, that they don't use you as the product.
Yeah. I want to shift gears a little bit, just slightly. Well, not really, but a topic that I know is fun for both of us. And I know that you enjoy and you're actively in this space is music and audio, specifically music. AI music generation and where it's at and how, kind of going back to the Rick Rubin methodology, there is being able to become this conductor of an orchestra. The orchestra being artificial intelligence, these tools that you could leverage and deploy based off of your creative insight and talent, right? Which I've seen you do time and time again to the point where I want to download some of these songs, man. So,
Thank you. Thank
like,
you.
do you think, absolutely. Do you think that it's where music is going to be heading? I guess my question is, at what point do like true, like when I say true singers, true musicians, I mean, someone that's born with a talent to be able to sing, but perhaps isn't a good songwriter. So they enlist a songwriter to be able to create that. But now you could use AI perhaps to be able to convey your feelings
Yeah.
and leverage that. And the opposite could also be true. You're a phenomenal songwriter, but you can't sing worth a shit, pardon my French.
It's me.
So you use an AI tool to be able to take your creative desire and your design that you have in your brain and be able to put that out in the world. I don't think that there's, in my personal opinion, anything wrong with that. But do you feel like there's going to be quite a bit of discussion and perhaps rebuttal from people on both sides of the spectrum? And B, where do you feel like music is really heading in the next 5-10 years with AI?
First of all, we've done this dance before. If you just step out of it for a second, and let's say we zoom back to just one example of the photograph. Like the photograph was originally, the camera was doing like, oh, you're putting portrait painters out of business, right? You're putting landscape
Right.
artists out of business because we have this photograph now. And now if everybody can capture the scene or capture your face in a way we don't need it drawn, what's going to happen to all these artists? We'll come to find out it's just a new form of artistry. People still paint paintings. People still use acrylic paint and, make pottery. But yet we've got even digital photography now, and we now have AI art now. And so I look at music kind of the same way, that maybe I'm not picking up my guitar, which I have over here, in strumming. I might be using natural language, telling AI a certain chord progression. I'm saying, hey, make this chord progression for me. And it makes the chord progression. I'm like a photographer than the painter. There's two different types of form of art. That said, I would like to say, I'm just kind of romantic at heart. Like I love the analog world. I love like a campfire and a real musician or guitar or acoustic guitar. And yeah, so don't mistake anything I'm saying for that. I think it's just we can just replace it with digital things, and it's just a great world. I like this is a little bit sounds weird to say, but truly beautiful art generally comes from a place of hurt or heartbreak or something that the person like went through that makes it relatable. It's just not hollow words that sound good in a chorus that AI wrote, you know? So the
Right.
story behind it starts to become part of the art. So you have those singer songwriters and they're sitting there on the, you know, the little stool and they have the guitar and they explain why they wrote this song and who broke their heart. And then you listen to the song and you're like, oh, you don't get that out of AI music, right? But when I make AI music, I'm sitting down with that same sort of heartbreak or that same moment or the same inspiration, and I'm using it to convey it in a different way. But I'm just not giving a prompt to Suno and saying, hey, make me a song about heartbreak, traveling down an old country road, and the girl's name was X and the boy's name was Y. You know, like, that's not what I'm talking about. You know, so I just believe that this whole conversation around what's going to happen to musicians is a dumb discussion because they're still going to be around. People are still born
Hmm.
to sing, and other people are still not born to sing. And the people that don't sing like look up to the singer, like that'd be beautiful to sing, right? There's an aspiration thing. Yeah, I love watching a great singer, not because of just the song, but because they can do something I can't, right? So I'm not worried about, you know, AI like making artists obsolete. It is just radically transforming the way it's done in the same way that Napster transformed, the same way Ticketmaster transformed. There's been a lot of transformational moments, you know, in the music history. This is just one of them. It does not make artists obsolete in any way. What it does do is it makes music more accessible to people. So I write
Yeah.
lyrics. I sit down, I write lyrics. I got a tone, I got a vibe, and now instead of waiting, you know, months to find maybe somebody can sing it for me or put it together, I got a couple buddies that could sing. We'll collaborate a little bit and over 2 years. Now I can sit down and I've got something I can sample. It's so freaking cool, you know? And like sometimes in bed at night, I'll actually lay there and I'll take all of my lyrics out of my books and I'll start feeding it into some different AIs, like just to hear samples back or like get an idea. Like I might feed a set of lyrics into like, who's an example? I'm like, hey, when you first read this, what music genre does it hit you as? It would be perfect to fit this, right? Oh, okay. Well, if it was this digital indie pop sort of vibe, what would be the instruments that would be key at these certain phases that you think would like really help tweak out the emotion in this phase, right? So I'd talk that way. And then I have like a really solid game plan. I'm going to use flutes here. I'm going to use synth here. I'm going to use strings here. We're going to build here. It should be a man's
Hmm.
voice. It should be a woman's voice, whatever. And I can assemble these things, right? But then I'm applying my taste to it, you know, my point of view to it. And that's what, for me, that's what makes it fun.
Yeah, I love that. And I couldn't agree with you more. I always like for me in music, I just feel like the AI tools is nothing but a tool. It's just like adding a compressor or reverb or,
Totally.
distortion, any kind
Auto
of
tune.
plugin that already exists. Auto tune, yeah, for sure. Very cool. Very cool. I guess if you're going to use AI in the creative process, well, this could be a Who's question. It could not. But how would you? I guess how would you do it well? Is there a set framework that you follow that you found in best practices, whether within your organization or just across the board?
You know, that's an interesting question, Mo. I think philosophically, generally speaking, you can't bottle up creativity, you know, and
Yep.
package it and give it a framework. I think, yes, there's certain things that you can do from breath work to meditation to practices to have a clean
Hmm.
space to, you know, having a good intention set. You know, I absolutely think that you can develop a practice of creativity, but bottling it is a whole nother thing, right? Especially for
Yeah.
those out there that are ADD minds or somewhere on the spectrum, genius ways. You know, it comes and goes. It's seasons and cycles, and so honoring those seasons and cycles are an important part of the creative process. Forcing creativity is just that's a soul sucking endeavor. I got to write this song. I got to make good copy. I got to make this video. Like that is just a crushing thing. So, you got to let it breathe sometimes. And so it's the opposite of frameworks. But going back to like our canvas that I was showing earlier, to me, that's sort of like, that is a framework that provides some tangibility to concepts. So if I conceptually can kind of see things or kind of want to hear things, I can start throwing it on the board, asking questions, mixing and matching, and it starts to solidify the good ideas from the bad, right? So I think just if I were to answer your question honestly, it's like you gotta let creativity be creative, and then when it's ready to come out of you, you have a path of least resistance to help it flow. You know, And so that's the moment
Yeah.
where it's striking you, whatever is good for you, and hopefully the AI helps you get to it faster and iterate faster, because that's how you find those moments of spark, man. Is when everything, just the universe is downloading, to you, and I'm sitting there in Canvas, and as it's coming, I can ask different AIs, I can capture little moments, I can sing out loud, or I can write that little thought, and I could give that thought to AI to expand it for me, right? And so just the speed at which that you could dive into your creativity, I think is really exciting how fast that is now.
I also think that in terms, and this could lead to a question, in terms of like a startup, a small organization, a solopreneur, you may not have the resources to be able to hire a designer, a logo designer, a graphic designer, video editor, whatever. And, going back to the good enough concept, like maybe in the beginning, it's fine just to be good enough, just to be able to get your foot in the door, to be able to get things in motion. And you could leverage these tools to be able to perhaps get into a position that 10 years ago you couldn't, unless you had the resources or the financial resources to be able to do so. What do you think about that? Or do you think it's just like you don't want to do things haphazardly, but it's not necessarily haphazardly. You're just trying to get a lead in and you're using everything at your disposal at the current capacity that you can.
All right, so now we're talking about entrepreneurship, and in entrepreneurship, it's a
Yeah.
different thing than writing a
Right.
song or whatever. Entrepreneurship
But
is a
it's,
game of
but
just
there's
being.
still that. Go
Oh, go
ahead.
ahead. I'm sorry. I'm going to hear.
No. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Or were you going to make a connection like it's still creative work?
Yeah.
Yeah, which 100%. But with entrepreneurship, you have to turn the creative work into something, and so that means it has to be figure
Right.
outable. So I'll give you an example, man. Like an example in tech right now, in this sort of like creative space where creativity meets technology, is in vibe coding. People are
Yeah.
using vibe coding tools in order to think of their app idea or prototype, or to make a little demonstration that they could share with somebody in a new way that they couldn't do before, and PowerPoint just falls short, right? And so this creativity side in entrepreneurship kind of meets at the vibe coding tools. So Bolt, Lovable, Replit, so on and so forth, Base 44. I use all of them. I've used millions and millions and millions of tokens on all those platforms just this month alone, just to be clear, like how much I use them. I've
Can't
done
believe it.
100+ prototypes of things, in the last month and a half. Like it's an obsession of mine to be able to visualize a feature, a function, what would be the UX, what would be the flow that I'm creating inside our current platform, right? So if I have our current platform and I've got a specific use case, I'll actually build out a little prototype now using one of these prototyping tools so I can see it and explain it to my engineering team and my sales team. And like, what do we think about this? I want to get to the point of this too. So in entrepreneurship, like learning that skill of having these specialized AIs perform specialized thing is so important, but not as important as having the thought leadership, the thought collaboration AI first. So I couldn't have done all these prototypes by just communicating with Base 44 or Replit or Bolt. It would do a fine job. It would do a mediocre job. But because I'm not a senior level engineer, it would only rise to the level of my being able to prompt it. But when I use Canvas and Huzi as my collaboration partner first to form the PRD, to get the technical requirements, to create all my user journeys and my flows, and I've got a complete framework, and then I strategize with Huzi of how to break that down to give it to Bolt, who has a best chance of success to be able to build it, then I can do rapid prototype, iterations, and it does it in a way where I help eliminate bugs, help eliminate, loops, all these dead ends that typical vibe coders run into, because I have my collaboration AI, my specialist AIs, and I'm orchestrating between the two. We talked about this on another podcast a little bit, but I think that's worthy to bring up right now, that sort of process of orchestrating through creative work to create a tangible artifact in your business world is so fun these days, and it's powerful. And to give you an example, I've done a couple of big demos in the last couple of weeks of things that took me a couple of weeks to work on a prototype and pitch. But man, it's a creative process that I'm now putting in front of people, and people are going, "Wait a minute, hold on, I've never thought about it that way before." That like share more with me. I couldn't have done that on my own. I couldn't have done it with just the vibe coding tool. It's the trio, me with Canvas with the vibe coding tool, that makes it so compelling. So it is a creative process, Mo, but with that, it's different. Then you got to go into figure out mode, and that's an entrepreneurship thing, not a creative thing.
Absolutely. 1000%. And I appreciate you stating that, because I think a lot of people tend to, myself included, kind of get roped into procrastination versus perfection, or procrastination over perfection, trying to get something right versus just trying to get something done. Especially in in the phase of like, we need a concept, we need something, we need to be able to show so we can explain or whatever, iterate upon, and I think that's huge. All right, man. Well, this has been phenomenal. I do want to get into the segment of the rapid fire section before
Let's do it.
I take any more of your time, and I think we're getting better at these.
Let's hear it. I can't wait.
I think so.
So good.
Okay. Okay. All right. So the first question, do you think that AI can create a masterpiece?
Since masterpiece is subjective, 100%. I do.
Yeah.
Let's just use one example. A lot of times when I'm on vacation somewhere or I'm visiting a new town or whatever, you walk down the main street, down any small town main street, there's some sort of art gallery or some sort of something, some sort of sculpture work or something from the local, artist or something like that. And I'll always just walk in. And whenever I'm subjected to an environment like that, you realize how masterpiece is so subjective. And so I would like to say I've been shocked by some of the images, by some of the videos, by some of the concepts and ideas that I've gotten out of AI and with AI, that to me was a masterstroke of insight. Or it was a beautiful shot that I would have never thought to take a photograph that way. So I do, but I generally have a high level of awe and wonder that allows me to like think things are beautiful, which I think is totally fine while not being tricked, or duped.
Yes.
I understand exactly what it is and why and what it isn't. I understand, what consciousness is in terms of a machine and what consciousness isn't. And so I'm not duped in that way, but I can have a sense of appreciation of like, wow, that is impressive. A computer can do this today. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like the once unfiltered curiosity of a child with the wisdom of a lifetime of experience kind of combined into one.
Ooh, there you go. That was artistry. That was artific right there. You like that word?
Artif-
It was artific.
Oh, that's funny.
Okay, what else?
I appreciate it. All right. Do you think AI generated content should be watermarked?
Wow. In my mind, I start to draw the line at deep fake, right? Right up into the deep
that's
fake.
where
Like
I'm going to.
if I make a fake you or a fake me or something like that, I just believe companies and people shouldn't be passing off. Like they shouldn't be like trying to trick people into thinking it's another real person. I think that's stupid.
Yep. Yep.
But like, do I think that if you write a blog post and you had Huzi or ChatGPT or Plex or something like that help you write it, that it needs to be authored that way? No, because it's the same way people have always written blog posts. They got the inspiration from Wikipedia or from Reddit or a book that they read in the 5th grade or whatever. We're all regurgitating information all the time, so we're just packaging it in new ways. I think where I draw the line is in the deep fakes.
Okay. I'd agree to that. Okay. Next question. Do you think humans pay more for human created art over artificial intelligence created art? Or does it even matter?
I just was writing about this the other night, man, where I imagine a world where a dividing line is actually done on the socioeconomic layer. So if I am a hotel, if I need a hotel tonight and my budget is in going to the La Quinta, pretty soon you should expect that you're going to have an AI experience to check in at the desk, online, on your phone. You're going to have an AI kind of experience at the cafe, whatever sort of thing. But if you go to the Four Seasons, you're going to have a white glove human experience. So I can see a dividing line for the type of human experiences versus AI experience for customer service, for expertise, for any sort of luxury experiences, purchasing experience. I can see a luxury home buyer, sticking with a real estate live professional longer than an investor just looking to buy a couple little townhouses somewhere for rentals, right? I can see there's a socioeconomic divide between services and AI. So in the same thing with art, I could see like, a sweater that's knitted by somebody, that has this mission to the way they knit sweaters have a certain value compared to one that you just buy at Target that was built by robots, right? So I can see humanity always putting preference on the bespoke human touch relative thing, then it just has more meaning, Mo. Kind of a
Oh
litmus
yeah.
test for that. If I could give you a thought experiment and, all right, you go out and you work your butt off and you're able to buy your dream. I know you're not a big car guy forever, but let's say you bought your dream Lamborghini, right? And it's beautiful.
I like classic cars.
Okay. All right. So you go buy your beautiful your dream Dodge or whatever, right? Like it's been rebuilt, it's beautiful, it's slick, it's exactly like what you wanted, all right? And you bought that sucker, it was your like life mission and you got it, you put it in the driveway. And then let's say your rich buddy for your birthday the next week just happens to buy you the exact same car and gives it to you, right? And he gives you the car, it's the exact same car. And a week later you're forced and you got to sell one of the two, even though they're the exact same car, it's likely you're going to want to keep the one that you bought yourself, that you work for, rather than the one that was given to you. Is that fair assumption? Right? There's a
Absolutely.
certain
Oh yeah.
meaning to things that we buy or that we just have in our life that we just elevate, not logically, but emotionally. So you can see that playing out with AI generated content, music, whatever, versus something coming from a human. You can also see that playing out in services at that divide of that socioeconomic line because you can run these thought experiments to kind of give some insight of what's going to happen in the future. A lot of these things that people are trying to predict what's going to happen in the future, I don't think there's as much mystery to it if you just understand why we make our decisions. So if what I sort of say sort of makes some sense, then you can maybe roll that forward to deciding, want to participate in the economy moving forward, knowing these things might likely happen.
Which kind of leads to the next rapid fire question is, do you think that AI is killing creativity or do you think it's enhancing creativity?
I think for the most of the people, it's
Or a
killing
mixture of both?
creativity. For most people, did I lose you?
Nope, I'm here.
Okay. I think for most people, it's killing creativity, but for, I don't know, the top quartile, top 15%, I don't know the exact number, it's wildly enhancing. So when I say this is a gap creator, this is one of those gaps that's creating when people are just saying, hey, just make this thing for me. And it's the 6 minute abs, it's the diet pill for them versus the ones that are using it to increase their skills. And it's a widening gap in expertise. And I'm not answering these very quickly. I should be like quick answers. This is rapid fire, bro. I'm sorry, I get all excited. Okay, quick answer,
No, it's
quick
all good.
question.
I like the pace. But okay, what's your favorite AI creative tool? It can be
Well, it's
Huzi.
definitely Canva, and then I'm sorry, Canvas. Like in Huzi, and then I would
Mhm.
say like Producer for music is really fun as like a creative tool. Like Producer a lot because it gives me kind of the iterative, roadmap. Inside of it, I can like ask for horns or ask for a different syncopation or add some vocal harmonies at this part of the chorus and that kind of stuff. So that's pretty fun.
That's so sick.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Do you think there is an overrated AI creative application? I know that's specific because a lot
I,
of
I
AI
I'm gonna sound like a
applications
hater,
can
but
be
I'm gonna say it's
creative.
ChatGPT.
Really?
I do, and the reason is because if you want to be creative in a certain way, for a certain thing, then you kind of need to start specializing in a way. And I think it's a
Hmm.
great step one for a lot of people, but unless they've gone through and done a good job of really training it in a certain way, doing all of your custom settings, you really understand what model you're talking to, and you need to talk to like four different than five different from deep thinking different than super grok different than 2.5 Gemini Pro. Like if you understand how to talk to them differently, then that's one thing. But if you're trying to just general like a good example, like I've talked to marketing people that can't quite do their marketing inside of ChatGPT because they can't have a conversation, just a one-way conversation, but they can do it in something like Canvas and
Right.
Huzi, where they can have
Hmm.
multiple AIs in one thing, each doing different parts component, and they're the assembly to it. They're not asking ChatGPT to do one assembly, and sometimes you need to have long conversations, to try and to have this creative thing. And ChatGPT and others, they have only a short context window where you start to lose track and you lose the nuance of stuff that you talked about before. And that's super annoying when you're trying to do creative work. And so on a canvas, you have multiple AIs, you don't run out of context as fast, right? And so you can actually have deeper conversations and go to more parts of where you need to go with your exploring ideas than just run out of a context window in one chat thread. So yeah, I was surprised to say that because I use ChatGPT quite a bit too, but I think it's overrated as a creativity tool.
I wouldn't expect that. That's crazy. All right,
Yeah.
last rapid fire question.
Okay.
Do you think in our lifetime we'll ever see an AI generated movie win an Oscar? Silly, but
Yes. Yeah.
I agree. That's why I put it in there because I truly believe that's going to happen.
I never thought about it. No one's ever asked me that question. Let me tell you why I think it, and then you can tell me if this tracks. So it's not just an opinion. Here's what's fundamentally holding up my opinion to me. One, the movie making business is a money business, and so
Mhm.
whatever the movie making business needs to do to continue to be relevant and make money, it will do, which means that it will explore ideas that are pure AI. We've already seen like GCI movies make blockbuster hits, right? It's mostly
Yeah.
GCI, like watch the Marvel movies, right? So I think there's some dynamics there, or the actors union and things like that, which is an interesting thing. I don't know how much
Hmm.
control or power they might have over this process, but in an industry that's on thin margins, like that business can be, where they're looking for every advantage to be relevant, they're going to test one for sure. And it's going to win some sort of award for sure to give credibility to allow more studios and more people to be able to test them. So I think in order to make a really compelling AI generated movie, you still need to have that brilliant director, the brilliant producer, the brilliant visual effects masters. Because I know what an effects might kind of look like for a car to blow up, but unless I've done a lot of blowing up cars, I might know how to get it just right, right? To really make a world class thing. So I still think it'll take, some people to do something like that. But yeah, man, I can even see a world where a single director makes it with all AI and they win an award at a huge scale over an entire production studio. I actually can pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's wild, man.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Nobody's asked me that before, but I think for those reasons, I agree with you that it will.
I like a couple months ago, I was watching this whole conversation, and Matt Damon was the one leading the talk, and he was discussing simply this, like how movie making is going to adapt. And that was one of the questions that was brought up. I'm like, that's really interesting that they're discussing this. And I think Clooney was in the convo, but it was an interesting talk. Oh, Denzel Washington, they're like around in this table. They've done a few of these styles of interviews or conversational style videos before, and Damon
Well,
just seems like he's
I'll say
what's
the
that?
other trend is that they're actually putting, so like some of these artists and actors are already selling their likeness. They're cloning their likeness, they're replicating their likeness, to be able to license their likeness to be able to do so. So you can see the trend is heading that way for sure. And if
Yeah,
anybody's downloaded Sora 2 and played with Sora 2, or if you're on social media, you're going to see Sora 2 videos. You're going to see cats with guns and Stephen
yeah,
Hawking, skateboarding in his wheelchair and competing, against skateboarding and all these crazy, crazy things. The reason why they released that, just to be super super clear, is because they just want all of us to train their video models. So by all of us uploading
yeah,
our cameos, uploading our faces, uploading and doing all these tests, and we're feeding their machine with training data. We're training it so when it does a generation and you have a skateboarder and you can tell it looks fake or whatever, and you hit regenerate, it knows that that's not acceptable, and so it's training the machine of what we like and what doesn't. So it's learning the world through us being its product, and we're paying for it. So just know
yeah.
that like these things are being pushed out as consumer facing products, but the reason for it is not to get your 9.99 or 4.99 or give you 4 free generations, a day for free. You're the product that they're using you to train their models to replace almost everything that you hold near and dear today. So have that level of knowledge when you're participating in these sorts of things, especially early release things. And if it's fine with you, but just at least do it, knowing and being aware of what's actually happening here.
Thank you for that. Yeah, that's a valid point, and it could just go over a lot of people's heads, and maybe you just weren't even considering it. It's just like setting up a Facebook account, not
Like,
realizing that
like, did you see
you're
all the
willingly
Jake
giving their
Paul
information.
videos
Oh yeah,
on Sarasota,
yeah.
right? Like, as soon as I saw that was becoming a trend, I'm like, well, he's obviously being paid for this, right? Like,
Hmm.
and come to find out, yep, he's an investor, and that was part of his strategy was to create this viral trend using the Jake Paul and having him do makeup and fight monkeys and whatever else. And it was a way to train their models using a real person, but blending the worlds where you can't really tell. And yet, us as a general population was like, okay, daddy, here you go. I'll just do this for you and we'll dance for you because we're just consumers. And so, I my only fear about this whole thing is the unawareness that people have, about what's actually happening. And other than that, I am
Especially
absolutely pro
kids.
AI because I'm pro intelligence. Intelligence solves problems.
Hmm. Yeah,
So,
1000%,
smarter we
thousand
are, the
percent.
better we
Thank
are.
you. Yeah, you have to be able to educate though. Like you gotta educate yourself, educate your kids, just like anything. I mean, social media, the internet, everything. You have exposure in every direction, 360 degrees. You can't I mean you can. I'm not saying you can't. There is a possibility of sheltering your children, but to what point? Up to what point? For how long? And is that really going to build character? Is that really going to build resilience? I'm not going to sit here and preach and teach your kids how to, raise your children. But what I'm saying is that there is a modicum of exposure. And I think that if you were to do this from the very beginning and understand that there are always going to be some sort of concern, educate yourself, like you're saying, then, just you'll be fine to,
We this is a hot take, and I don't mean to be like extending this, but this is a hot take, Mo, and it goes right into the fact of people who are afraid of developing something really smarter than us, right?
yeah.
I get that if you have no faith in what intelligence actually is. So if I open the spirituality book for a second, or the religious talk about this whole thing with AI, anybody I've heard talk about their God, of whoever that God is, they kind of phrase that God or God, series of gods, as all knowing, which also immediately is followed up with all loving. All knowing and all loving seems to always be combined in some way. Intuitively, we know this. We know that the like racism and bigotry and sexism doesn't come from intelligence, it comes from ignorance. And ignorance breeds hate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So if we really think about building something really smart and really intelligent, something really intelligent understands the interconnectedness to all things. It doesn't look at a segment of the population or somebody by the color of their skin or socioeconomic and says, we need to eliminate you. Right? It understands fundamentally the macro of everything if it's that smart, and therefore has an appreciation for all things. So you think about like the wisest gurus, they're not violent. They're the most peaceful, the wisest elders in every village. Like everybody, they talk about like avoiding war and avoiding conflict and loving each other and all those sorts of things. So it's really ignorance that fosters hate and violence, the opposite
Yep.
of intelligence. So if we really want to push towards intelligent systems, the thing that we need to be careful about is who's in charge and what morality is being baked into these systems. Because it's not intelligence
Right.
we should
Whose
be
hands?
afraid of. It's the morality part of it that we need to be afraid of, not intelligence. So making really smart things,
Yep.
giving us really smart access to really smart models to help cure cancers and all these other things is really important. So just be careful about conflating intelligence and violence together. You can't have a system that's so smart that it could figure out how to wipe out all the human race, and you're saying it's so smart but then it would want to. Those things don't go together. Okay? So you can't have something so smart and then so self-serving. Those aren't self-serving things, are not intelligent things.
Thank you for that. And a great segue into our next episode, which is going to be AI in education and learning, and how we should be teaching in a world where AI can do your homework, where does learning even matter anymore? Is there a different form of learning? Should we learn differently? And how we can help educate our children and the next generation to become smarter, to become more intelligent, and less ignorant, because
I
it's
can't
not a
wait to have
world that
that.
I want to live in.
I can't
Yeah,
wait to
me
have
too,
that.
man. I'm so excited to talk to you about that. So, thank you again, everybody, for tuning in. And Eric, thank you so much for just giving us all this incredible gold nuggets of information. And we look forward to seeing you guys next week. Thanks so much.
Cheers.